Oh man. Hey everybody, welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. I am Adam Moody, and with me I have Chris and Bradley, and today is episode 410. Today is the 21st of September, and today is important because it is the last Hump Day Hangout before POFU Live 2022, which is coming this weekend. VIP Day is on the 23rd, and then the main event on the 24th this Saturday. So we're really looking forward to that. We got a lot lined up. We're going to talk about that a little bit before we get into it. But first, I wanted to say hello to the guys. So Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good. Just back from a sauna trip to relax a bit. Just like a little time out while working on my POFU presentation and stuff. So like taking it easy.
Solid.
Yeah, lots of stuff to do as usual. But yeah, things are piling up. It's everything is accumulating, and yeah, we'll see what's happening soon.
Nice. I think I need to go do that. I did a 9-mile trail run before Hump Day Hangouts, and then I just got back into the gym. I've been working out at home for the past couple of years, and finally went back to the gym, and man, I am feeling it. I was just like running, feel good. And then like halfway through, I'm just like, damn, like I could tell I've been doing squats. Like I am running out of energy fast. But that'll go away in a few weeks. So yeah. Bradley, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Speaking of that, I did the same thing. I just started going back to the gym too, like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
And you're right. It's like you got to knock all the rust off everything before you can like it's crazy. But once you get that first kind of like massive like soreness out of the way, then it's not nearly as bad for all the subsequent workouts. You know what I mean? So
right.
Yeah, no, things are good.
We're gonna be all gained soon.
Yeah. Things are good. We're trying to finish my work for the for POFU Live this weekend. It's close. Still got a lot left to do. So, but it's thorough, giving a hell of a lot of information away for the cost of admission.
Bradley's like giving way too much away. Like I don't like.
Don't I always though?
Back. I don't know. Like.
Don't I always?
Well, speaking of, I wanted to share it. Of course, you can go to pofulive.com, grab your ticket there. If you want to look into the details, you can look at that there. We've got a ton of great speakers. If you click on VIP package, unfortunately, those are sold out. We can't sell anymore since we ship things out to the VIP ticket holders. So you can click on it, but you're just going to see that it's not available. So don't click on that. Go over here, get the main ticket. That'll get you into POFU Live. And really looking forward to hearing from everybody. Of course, our wonderful faces will be there, but also Jeremy from Press Advantage, got Jesper, David Hood, Brian Caddo, and Mike Merlino. So really going to have a great lineup. We got a really full day, but of course, if you have the ticket, if you join and you come to POFU Live, you get free access to the recordings as part of that. Because we get it, even we have to get up and go to the bathroom and get a drink of water. So we're not going to hold it against you if you miss a couple minutes. But time is running out on this. You're going to want to grab your ticket by tomorrow, Thursday, the 22nd at midnight. We've got to shut down sales. So we have time for any last minute ticket buyers to make sure they get into the group, that they get the directions, and they're ready to go for Saturday when we kick things off at 9 a.m. Eastern. So really looking forward to that. We've got a great group, not only presenting, but seeing and talk to a lot of the people who have signed up who are coming both on for the VIP session and the main event, and really looking forward to that. So it's always a lot of fun getting together, talking shop, and seeing what everybody's got to share kind of behind semi-closed doors, if you will. It's a lot of fun. So with that said, guys, anything else we want to cover on that before we get into it?
Just real quick that, it just works out the way that, and it's like almost like we planned it this way. The speaker, like everybody speaking this for POFU Live, is it all works together. It's crazy. It works really well together because what I'm going to be sharing is pretty powerful, very thorough. Part of that is the content mirroring method, which we shared last year, just from Black Friday to Cyber Monday. We gave that away, and it's very powerful, but I'm kind of modified that and updated it with some new methods or tactics that are kind of part of it, new components to the content mirroring method. And that's really strong. It's super thorough, and something that we will have a done for you service for this content mirroring method. It's coming, probably will be by the end of October, should be available. Anyway, but then all the other speakers, like Jesper's talking, Yax, he's the owner of Yax, yet another cloud stacking software. That's a big part of what the content mirroring method is. We got Brian Cato coming and talking about link building stuff or whatever else it is that he's talking about that is definitely works well with this. We've got David Hood talking about Google Business stuff, which what I'm teaching about does not require Google Business, but if you have it, it's a bonus and it will make it work so much better. So that's even, that's another great thing. And then Michael Merlino coming and talking about CTR stuff, which is definitely a part of what I'm teaching about too. So it's just like all these different speakers, it just integrates perfectly with what it is that I'm teaching this weekend. So just a really good lineup this year. I think the stars lined up just right. And I think it's going to be a really good event. So
definitely.
Hope to see you
And I think this is, it depends if you like it, love it. We've gotten really good feedback on the virtual events. We may look at doing some smaller ones in the future, but we are looking forward to potentially doing it live next year. And as part of that, all of us here have done live events. I know we go to various ones on our own. I've gone to a couple with Bradley. I think Chris and Bradley have gone to at least one or two together. And there's a lot to be said for both in person and virtual. But one of the things, it's the reality of life, right? To be in person costs more. You got to pay for a building, a room, all that sort of stuff. So one thing we do like about the virtual is it's a lower barrier to entry. If cost is an issue, we've made it so the virtual version is definitely makes sense in terms of the cost. And then we're really looking forward to doing these in person because there are some, you get the extra hangout time, you get the time, when people aren't just presenting, you get that extra little juice or whatever it is. And we're looking forward to that. But I would say don't wait. If you can and you want to make it to this one, 2022, grab your ticket now, join us, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And then hopefully that will encourage you to come join us live the next time we're able to do it live, which hopefully 2023 we can do that, maybe meet up on the East Coast somewhere.
Right on.
Cool. Let's get into it.
Okay, we got some thorough questions today. So let's get into it.
I'm trying to see here. I'm guessing
I think popular
talkative guests.
Oh no, you're right. That is the first one. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Hey guys, how do you go about setting up your SEO arrangements so that you can grow with the business? Are you charging based on keywords? I'm charging based on a combination of deliverables, which I think work best for the exact project. Example, 3 PRs a month and supporting links to the gsite, etc. Is this a good approach, or would you suggest something better? Well, for me, because I work almost exclusively with service area businesses, we start with, 3 key. And it's funny because I've had this conversation with some link building clients, or actually somebody was asking about full white label SEO services. And what I provide is 3 keywords, and it's for Google Business SEO. And for like my tree cleaner contractors, for example, we focus on the 3 primary keywords that generate the most traffic and leads, which is tree service, tree removal, tree trimming. Those 3 keywords. That's it. Like we focus on that, and we focus on the broad keywords. We optimize for those. And if we can get them, we always start with, what I start with is just a 25 square mile area. So that's a 5x5 GeoGrid or local search grid with 1 mile spacing between the nodes. And what I say is once we get, whatever my retainer fee is, my bottom line starting price for Google Business SEO, straight up Google Business SEO, that does not include a self-hosted website or anything else, it's $850 a month. And I say that they'll get those, the tree service keyword is generally what we optimize for, but we target all 3 of those keywords. And we do a 25 square mile area, right? So it's a 5x5 grid. We tell them we'll turn them green within 4 months. That's kind of the guarantee that I provide. Once we get to that point where we've got the search grid kind of, covering that area, then we start to expand the map, right? And we start to expand the map coverage. And if they want to go outside of their immediate area, then that's when I start charging more money, because it's going to require more. We're going to need more geo pages on the site. So location pages on the site, more posts, more content, more links, everything else. But we always kind of, we start to expand. And then if they want to get out of what would be considered normal kind of proximity for that kind of a business, then that's when we start to charge more money for that. I don't do it based on number of keywords. I do it by coverage, maps coverage area. And that's just because that's the type of business that I'm in. Some of the other, or type of industry that I'm in. It's interesting, but like I said, I had somebody that was asking me about white label services, which that's coming from us guys, full service white label SEO services. That's coming too. But somebody was asking me about that, and I told him 3 keywords, and he was like, well, that seems awfully low. And he was like, you know, can you give me a quote on 50 keywords, 75, 100? I kind of laughed. It probably pissed him off because I never heard back from him. But I kind of giggled about it because I said, you know, I don't know what kind of SEO you're talking about, but you know, if you want to do like target a whole bunch of keywords that mean nothing, like then sure, we could do more keywords, but we always target the broadest keywords that generate traffic and sales, period. Like that's it. We target those. As long as we can rank for those, all those kind of long tail search queries and everything else, they're going to fall right in the line. So we always go for again, for tree service contractors, tree service, tree removal, tree trimming, those top 3 keywords, we optimize for that. If we can rank for those keywords, all the kind of like lesser keywords, the longer tail stuff, they're going to get traffic and leads from. So that's why, you know, I don't optimize for 100 keywords or 50 keywords or 20 keywords. We figure out what the top level keywords are, whatever their primary products or services are. We optimize for that. And we try to get exposure in maps for that, and coverage. We start to expand coverage and start to expand services and charge more if we need to expand more. That's kind of the way that I do it. But, you know, I do almost exclusive. Well, besides my link building business, all I do is local SEO. So that's the way that I do it. Does anybody here have any other kind of opinions on that?
No, not really. I think, sorry about that. Have my mic down. I think what you said makes sense to me, Bradley. I was kind of curious because I think a lot of people probably don't do coverage, and I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense for me, since I deal more with email and I don't, you know, have the same setup as far as charging as the agency goes. I'm not sure what I would have would make much sense for people who are doing strictly SEO. So I think what you said makes sense, and it's a good way to go about it too, because I think it's fair for you, and that way too, the client doesn't maybe feel like they're being nickel and dimed. And it makes sense to me if I was the client, where it's like, hey, we're expanding into this new literal area. There's going to be new and different leads that are coming in. So of course, this is going to require some additional work and some sort of fee.
Yeah. And just to clarify, guys, you know, if we get the top, you know, the primary keywords to rank within the 25 square mile area, then we move it from a 5x5 grid to a 7x7 grid. Then we go to an 11x11 grid, you know, and we'll keep expanding it out until we reach kind of like the threshold of what is considered normal proximity for a particular business. And then if they've got full coverage there and they want to start targeting other keywords instead of expanding their map, but maybe target more specific keywords or other, you know, kind of services, we can do that. And I don't charge any extra for that. You know, it's up to the client what they want to do. If they want to continue to add more like larger covered service area, expand their proximity essentially, then, you know, there's a threshold that you hit that it's very difficult to expand beyond that without considerable on-page work, geo posts and things like that. And sometimes it requires an additional Google business location, right? And so that's why, like I said, if there's some cases where, you know, in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we get all the coverage that we promised as part of my guarantee. And so I'll tell the client then at that point, well, you know, are there other specific keywords that you want to target, or are there specific locations that you want to target? And we can kind of shift the focus away from those keywords to something else without charging more, right? It's only if once we get, you know, if there's like we want to go past what would be considered, you know, normal proximity. And what is normal proximity? Well, that's going to vary depending on industry and depending on location. Obviously, where there's more businesses, so in more dense population, dense areas, it's going to be a tighter proximity, right? It's going to be less area that the map will be given exposure for. But if it's a more rural area, you can generally rank for in a much larger kind of service area because there's less businesses to compete with, right? So again, it varies. You know, in a very urban area, the service area can be very, very small and can be very difficult to expand beyond that, especially because there's generally, if there's more population density, there's also more businesses, more companies offering the same services. So there's more competition. I think that's pretty normal. So anyways, a good question. Next one. Hey guys, I recently took on a tree service client who had a company that was doing SEO for them who they dropped. Since the July Algo update, their website dropped from position 1 to the bottom of page 1 for most of its main terms. Looking at their linking profile of competitors compared to this client site, the client site has been nuked with high trust flow blog comments that aren't topically relevant. That's probably part of the reason. Meanwhile, competitors are ranking with minimal links that are not relevant. The anchors seem to be mostly brand naked and generic, but moving forward, what process would you suggest to tidy up the backlinking profile? Cheers, Heath. Hey, Heath. Yeah, I mean, it depends on, it's interesting, but with local projects, you can, if you're getting links from other local businesses, so local sources, so links that are geographically relevant or location relevant, then they don't have to be topically relevant, and they'll provide benefit, because that's part of kind of the local ranking algorithm. Google understands that businesses where businesses are located, right? It understands. So if you get a link from I use this example often, but for a tree service contractor, let's say that the appropriate, and Heath, I'm sure you know this, the appropriate kind of topical trust flow categories or topical categories, but I'm going to use it in topical trust flow terms, which is Majestic's categorization of topics. So for tree service contractors, there's really like three that are the most appropriate or primary kind of topical trust flow categories: business construction and maintenance, business agriculture and forestry, and in home/gardening. Those three are the most appropriate. So on a topical level, to rank organically, right, you want to try to get links that are in those kind of topical categories. But to rank locally, which means maps ranking, what also has an influence on organic ranking is getting any sort of link from any kind of topical category. Doesn't have to be a relevant topical category, but from sites or sources that are locally relevant, meaning in close proximity, in the same city, same region, whatever. So an example of that would be like having an attorney, a lawyer, a law firm in the same city as your tree service company or tree service business that client or lead gen asset, whatever it is, your tree service project. Having an attorney that had a tree got struck by lightning or something in their parking lot, and they called the tree service contractor. Tree service contractor comes out and does a tree removal job, does a good job. The attorney does a thank you post on their blog about it, like, hey, just want to give a shout out to Joe's Tree Service for coming out and taking care of a tree that got struck by lightning in our parking lot, blah blah blah. And they link to Joe's Tree Service in this case. That link is going to come from a site that is likely has society/law as the primary topical trust flow category. So it's not topically relevant, but because it's a business that is located in the same city, it's geographically relevant. So therefore that link right there is powerful. It's powerful for ranking locally. In maps, it also does have an influence on ranking organically, because Google understands that law firm is an entity based in the same general area. Right. Other places you can get links from would be, local chamber of commerce, at least in the United States. I think Heath, you're in Australia. If I'm not, if it's the same Heath, I think it is. Tree services, I'm pretty sure it is. Anyway, my point is, local chamber of commerce in the U.S. I'm sure there's comparable associations or organizations in Australia, but also like local news and media sites, other vendors or businesses that the company does business with in the same general area. Any of those are going to work, right? Because again, they're going to be locally relevant links or geographically relevant links. That's important for ranking locally. Both, it has an influence on organic, but it's more about ranking in maps. Similarly, topically relevant links matter for ranking in organics. It's more important for ranking in organic than it is in maps, but it has an influence on maps. They all work together. So the reason I tell you all this is because, I analyze a ton of projects. I do competition analysis for all of our link building clients. So I'm always constantly looking at backlink profiles of projects, local projects. And there are a lot of times where we find top ranked competitors that are ranking with very poor topically relevant links, meaning most of their links are not topically relevant. But upon further investigation, you find out that they get a lot of links from local sources, and that has a significant influence on local ranking. So, that's probably part of the reason, guys. That's why I say just building links based on metrics is no longer valid, in my opinion. Just getting high trust flow, if it's not in an appropriate category, does nothing. I've tested that. I've tested that within the last year. I've tested that, and I could get trust flow links 50 plus, but they weren't in the appropriate category. They did nothing. In fact, I even saw a negative, like a negative movement from getting high trust flow links that weren't in an appropriate category. So it's the same thing that goes with, you know, DR or DA or whatever. And I don't even think that the domain ratings really matter as much as the page authority metrics do. So whether it's page authority or URL rating, if it's Ahrefs, it'd be URL rating, or UR, I guess they call it. Those I think are more important than even the domain metrics, really, to be honest. But to me, it's all about topical relevance or geographic relevance, one or the other. At Semantic Links, we focus on topically relevant links, not local links. That's much more difficult to get, the local links, at least at scale. For somebody like me, a link builder, it's difficult to do. As an agency or consultant, especially if you're working in, you know, specific cities and things like that, I always recommend to my link building clients, hey, it's up to you as the SEO agency or the consultant to secure local links for your clients, or instruct your clients how to do it and have your clients try to secure local links, which they can do by just asking, like, again, vendors that they do business with in the same town, same general area, things like that, doing link exchanges from other companies in the same town. That works. That absolutely works. So, so there you go. I think, again, if you were to kind of analyze that a little bit more and look at the backlink profiles, Heath, of the competitors that are ranking better, even though there might be low quality links, there probably some sort of geographic relevance there, which is why they're ranking. And then, by the way, there's always times, it's not all that often, but there are always times where there's just something that's ranking that makes no sense, and I can't figure it out. And, you know, I can analyze until I'm blue in the face, and it does not make any difference. I cannot figure out why sometimes there are certain websites that rank. There are just anomalies, algorithmic anomalies that occur that I cannot explain. I just actually looked at one of those earlier this week. I just could not figure out why it was ranking. But that happens from time to time. Next one. Hey guys, I'm looking to build a custom website, which will have a whois lookup tool. This will dynamically create subdomains with information about that domain. This will be generating lots of detailed pages about different domains and may have some competitor domains inadvertently picked up. There won't be any external links to the sites, just the name of the site and meta description and title. With this approach, is there any potential that my competitors could benefit? Well, it's a citation, you know, a mention of a name, like a company name, brand name, things like that. That's a citation. It has a slight SEO benefit, even without a hyperlink. So they could potentially benefit just from a little bit of, you know, having citations. But I think most people probably think when I say citation, they mean like a traditional or structured citation, which is like a business directory listing, name, address, phone number, often a link. But when I say citation, a citation is a mention somewhere being published online. Like when you cite a source, when you're doing writing a paper, right? You cite a source, that's a citation. A citation is mentioning the original source, right? So the same thing occurs, citations, mentions, even without a hyperlink, published mention, name, address, phone number, brand name, even a link, the URL, but it's not hyperlinked. Even that counts as a citation. Does that make sense? So they could benefit a little bit from it, but it's not much. It's not much. So I wouldn't really worry about it. If so, how can I stop it while still being able to produce these pages? I wouldn't worry about it as long as you're not linking to it. I wouldn't really worry about it. Citations do have a little bit of SEO effect. It helps if you can get citations. And again, I'm talking about just mention of no hyperlink, just mention of published online, name, address, phone number, or brand name, things like that. The more those count, cumulatively, if you get enough of them, they can move the needle. But I don't think you're a couple of, a page or two that would mention their brand name or their website or whatever, even without a link. I don't think any of that's really going to matter. It's not enough. Okay, next one. Hey guys, I work for a SaaS company, so software as a service company that has a website builder component. Part of the feature is white labels, so people can point their custom domains to our domain via cname. Our domain has lots of links, but do we get any SEO credit for those using white label pointing at our domain? If not, is there a way to get credit to our root domain? Yeah, I mean, That's a good question. I really don't know the answer to. If they're doing a CNAME, I could test that. I know I could test it to find out, and I've not tested that. And the reason I know I don't have an answer for you today. I don't know, but I could find out for sure. Because cloud hosted pages on custom domains are CNAMEs. Adam, do you know the answer to this?
No, this is a super interesting question. You were like, I don't know. Just like, yeah, I haven't ever thought about this.
Yeah. And I know I could test it because I could confirm whether it does or not, because the way that we host HTML pages on custom domains that we go out and scrape and find. So for, semantic links, essentially what I call rebuilds, there are cloud hosted HTML sites on Amazon S3, Rackspace, Linode, DigitalOcean, Vultr, all those kind of like cloud storage hosts. And for Rackspace and Amazon S3, we get a CNAME. It's like this long string of random characters and stuff. And that's what we get. And so we point our domain to those CNAME records. And that's actually what causes the site to resolve at the domain level. So whatever metrics that we buy from when we purchase the domain, we're purchasing metrics. We're purchasing, the metrics that I look at are trust flow and citation, majestic metrics. And I really don't even care about those two metrics. What I care about is topical trust flow. And those kind of those metrics is what we're kind of purchasing. The relevance, the existing backlink profile, the former content, like we're buying relevance is what we're doing. But the metrics are when we point the domain through CNAME to the long string of like the CNAME record that we get from Amazon S3 or from Rackspace. I can still go view that website on the CNAME like URL, if that makes sense. I don't have to go to the domain. I can actually view that site. So I could view that and look at the metrics and see if any of those metrics pass to that kind of, long like cloud storage domain essentially. And if so, then yeah, it passes. If not, then no, it doesn't. Go ahead.
I may be oversimplifying this too, because I think we kind of attacked this from a different direction, but shouldn't this just be like, if this is a website builder, I'm just using ClickFunnels as an example. When you build out something on ClickFunnels site, it's, whatever your plan name is, like, semantic mastery dot clickfunnels dot app dot whatever.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then it should be a subdomain, and then subdomains are treated as totally separate domains, right? So
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So in the end, I mean, there's still kind of an interesting question, but I think the root question, pun semi-intended, is that if we're setting this up and you're redirecting a subdomain, does that do anything? Does it carry anything from the root domain? And I would think the answer should be no, correct?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know on this one. I could find out though, because as you said, like we could look at, like, for example, I've got a few high level sites now websites built in high level, and they're CNAME records, or it can be an A record, but you can also do CNAME records. So I could look at those too and see the same thing. So I don't have an answer for you today, but I could find out. In fact, I'm just going to make a note of that.
Cool. Who was it? Excited self?
CNAME
Awesome. Good question.
Pass question mark. I just made a little note to myself. I can check that and find out. And if you want to come back next week and ask, I should have an answer for you. That's a good question. I don't know. Interesting. All right, next one. So I got stumped today, but that's a good one that I know I can find the answer to with just a couple of tests. Hey everyone, started my SEO agency recently and collected some good link building vendors, which I have gotten some good results with. I'm looking to now offer tiered PBN powerups as a monthly service for clients to point towards their press releases at tier 1. The PBN vendors I'm using are on Legiit, and as per industry standards, they don't give out URLs to protect their networks. How would you go about explaining this to clients? Clients get all URLs for press releases I run, but may be hesitant to order in an extra add-on if they don't know what they are getting, even though I will explain there are additional links to power up the press release. I realize some clients won't care, but others may have reservations. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like you might be offering up too much information to your clients, unless you're in an industry where the clients are just typically a lot more, savvy about internet marketing stuff and how SEO works. Because I don't know, I haven't had any clients that give a shit about, the link sources and things like that. They just, they just don't care most of the time. If they do, maybe if it sounds like you might be offering up too much information. I don't know that that's the case. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that it sounds like you may be, again, offering up more information than what they probably care about. I don't know that that's the case, but you know, you could mention if that's not the case, and it is that you really do just happen to have a handful of really savvy clients that just know something about SEO and they want to know where the link sources are. I mean, you're talking about tier 2 and tier 3 links now. Why any client would want to know what the tier 2 and tier 3 link sources are, I just don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. But if that is indeed the case and they just want to know, then you can always just explain to them exactly what the truth is, which is, you know, revealing link sources can endanger the networks, endanger the link sources. So we use link sources that protect their networks so that they remain, you know, less likely to be found, you know, discovered and then terminated by Google. And these are links that are going to help to power up what, you know, what we're doing at tier 1, or, you know, however you want to explain that to your client. And that's just it. Just be honest. Don't try to sugarcoat it. You know, I always say that honesty is the best policy. And I mean that just because, you know, trying to be cute or coy and trying to kind of mask things that you're doing, sometimes it's just not wise, because it you know, I don't recommend it. Again, I don't have any clients that give a shit at you know, stuff linking directly to their money site. Yeah, I can understand people questioning that, but when you're talking about like tier 2, tier 3 links, I don't see how that's relevant. Why that would matter. In fact, you know, again, I don't have any experience with clients that want to know that much. And if they do, they're generally going to be real pain in the ass clients. Now, I got link building clients that want to know, but that's different. My client base are SEOs, right, for the link building business. But my agency clients who are tree contractors, they don't even know what half that shit is. They don't care. And that's maybe, you know, I've been in different industries over the years and had a few that were kind of savvy business owners that understood SEO at least enough to be dangerous and to ask good questions. But even them at that kind of that far out, that's just way more granular. I mean, are these clients also going in and asking the mechanic how they're fixing their car? You know what I mean? Like, what tools do you use? And what, you know, that kind of, it just seems like it's probably unlikely that they're asking those questions. You might just be giving up too much information. And that happens often, guys. I've done it in the past. I'm sure anybody here that has SEO clients has probably given up too much information in the past. And most clients don't care about that stuff. Some do, but very, very few of them. And I found the ones that do are generally going to be harder to deal with because they think they know everything. And so they always want to tell you how to do your job. And that's like, again, telling the mechanic how to fix your car, right? Like, hey, you're the mechanic, but I'm going to tell you how I want it fixed. Come on, man. You know? So I don't know. I'd try not to, you know, there's some things that should be proprietary information, right? There's like a secret sauce, and that's SEO. There is kind of like, we do have to play the man behind the curtain sometimes, right? So I don't know if that was a good answer, but sorry, I don't really know how else to deal with that. I feel like they're asking for stuff that is really irrelevant to whether what matters is the results, and that you don't penalize their site, right? Would it be a good idea to scrape Wikipedia and build out our own niche wikis to include in schema and create our own knowledge graphs? Or is it better to scrape all Wikipedia and make a full clone on our own domain? I'm not sure I understand the question. Would it be a good idea to scrape Wikipedia and build out our own niche wikis to include in schema and create our own knowledge graphs? Or better to scrape all Wikipedia and make a full clone on our own domain? Okay, and I just don't understand that question. If you want to, you should be referenced for schema. You want to reference data sources that Google trusts. Google trusts Wiki. Wikipedia, guys, has so many errors and it's so biased in so many ways. And yet it is a trusted source by Google. So referencing like, you know, knows about and, you know, things like that, using kind of Wikipedia links and also some of the other kind of semantic databases. Wikidata.org is another one. DBpedia is another one. So like, I think it's dbpedia.org. Like some of those are kind of like semantic databases are good to use in like same as schema, or knows about, things like that in structured data. But you want to use known trusted sources for reference points within structured data, not stuff that you make up. You know what I mean? What I mean is, if you're going out and creating your own wikis, is that trusted by Google? Probably not. And so you're better off for schema using trusted data sources. Again, wikipedia.com, wikidata.org, and I think it's dbpedia.org, I believe it is. dbpedia. Yeah, that one there. That's another kind of semantic database that you can reference. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure I fully understand the question. The next one is wondering if there's any value using named anchors within your URLs for internal linking. Let's say you have a page on window installation. You have 3 named anchors on the page, vinyl, wood, and polyvinyl. Would you use all combination of these in your internal links, or just stick to the base URL / window installation? Okay, so when you say name, yeah, so named anchors. Okay, so like another term for that is anchor links or jump links. People often call those jump links. Yeah, no, there's benefit to that. And they pass whatever links you build to those with the kind of hashtag, those are, the symbol, and that just is the way that it knows, right? A named anchor. So you put the name wherever you want that link to. It's an on-page anchor link. That's why I call them, a lot of people call them jump links, right? Because it's a link that when clicked will take you to a specific part on the page. Well, any links that you build to those, it flows back to the original URL, right? So those are just like variations of that URL that lead to a specific point on the page. And yeah, that works. In fact, in the content mirroring method that we shared last year, I talked about that very specifically, because instead of doing like a traditional silo, I like to do one kind of like long form content now, instead of like a top level page with like 4 supporting articles, which would be a traditional silo. I like to do one long form page now that has a table of contents with jump links or anchor links, right, that go to the specific section on the page. And so I have one page instead of 5 pages. Again, the example I was just mentioned was top level page and 4 supporting posts, right? Each covering kind of a main topic, subtopic from the primary top of silo page. But instead, what I like to do now is one page with a table of contents at the top that links to H2 headings for each one of what would have been its own post. It has its own section on the page now, right? And so a jump link links to each one of those. So when doing any sort of like content mirroring, instead of linking, like having, so if I wanted to do, for example, 5 Google business posts so that I could mirror the content structure of that long form page or a traditional silo. A traditional silo, if I was going to mirror that, then I would have a Google business post that links to the top of silo page. Then I would have a separate Google business post for each supporting post that links to its supporting post URL, right? But on a long form page, it could be all one page with a table of contents. And then you'd have 5 Google business posts, one targeting the top level page URL. So, and then the 4 subsequent posts, which is the supporting posts, would link to the jump links from the table of contents. Does that make sense? And so it's all pushing back to that same kind of top level URL, but it's targeting very specific parts of the page that are optimized for that. So yeah, it works. I mean, I've been doing that for over a year now, building links to jump links. When jump links are present, it makes sense to do so. And most of my clients, we do that. We have table of contents plugin in WordPress. There's an easy table of contents plugin that does that. You could also do it in Elementor and probably all the other page builders as well. So we do that often because usually the top of silo page is going to be long form content. So we'll do our supporting posts, even like activity posts, which are just our ongoing blog posts that we do on a regular basis. We will link to specific sections. So for example, on a tree service page, like I've got a client that does landscaping, tree services, and irrigation services like sprinklers, lawn sprinklers, and stuff like that. So they've got 3 separate like silos, service silos, landscaping. Well, they got lawn care too. So 4, they've got lawn care, landscaping, tree services, and irrigation. So on the tree services page, we cover the primary, and they're down in Florida. So we cover tree service, tree trimming, tree removal, palm tree services or palm tree care, and stump grinding and stuff. So there's like 5 main kind of topics, or tree service topics that are covered on that page, and they have a table of contents at the top with jump links to each one of them. And so when we're publishing supporting posts, we might publish a post about stump grinding and removal, and that's going to link directly to that jump link that goes to that section of the tree service page. Does that make sense? So again, it's a way to, it absolutely works. And each one of those, it all flows back to the top level URL. But it's a way to kind of inject some additional relevance into a specific point on the page too. So yes, it works. Okay. And internally, it does the same thing too. I mean, again, those are jump links but if you click that link from somewhere else, from like another page, it will take you to that page, into that section on the page. So they work as external links too, right? Does that make sense? Anyway, all right, next one. We're almost done. Wow. A little bit early. Good. I can get back to work. I got more stuff to do before POFU Live. One from YouTube.
Yep.
Is branded plus keyword the most important factor to expand using CTR? No, I mean, that's one of many. So, a brand plus keyword is part of it, but again, we talked about navigational search queries. We can kind of demonstrate that briefly again, because we got a few minutes, but there's like brand plus, let me zoom in on this, guys. We can demonstrate this a little bit, but there's a brand search, and then there's like brand plus a keyword. So we can say like a service or product, etc. Then there's also like brand plus phone. And I don't mean like you put brand plus the phone number in, you put brand plus phone as part of the search query that you want to manipulate CTR signals on. So just to kind of explain what I mean, if we go over to Google, I'll show you what I mean. And we'll just use this example that I've used before. So Culpeper Home Services, they've done a phenomenal job with their website. Whoever their SEO company is, they did a fantastic job with the site structure. Fabulous job with that. But okay, so this is what I want to point out. This is just a company local to me in Culpeper. I have nothing to do with them. I just used this before in an example, and it's just a really good example that I can use to point to. Anyway, you see how Culpeper Home Services, well, if we do a search for that, that's a brand search right there, right? Well, we could also do Culpeper Home Services, let's say plumbing. Okay, that's a good signal. They also do, I believe, HVAC services, probably electrical stuff too. But if I say like HVAC, whoops, again, that's brand plus keyword. That's what you asked about. Okay. If I could type today, God damn it, every look at time I type, it's misspelled. Okay, so those are brand plus keyword searches. But what about this? Brand plus phone. Watch. See that? That's what's called a rich snippet. That is a great signal, guys. That's a great navigational search query or branded search, because somebody that's searching Culpeper Home Services phone or phone number, they're looking to call them. That is a fantastic signal. You understand? Here's another one, right? Another one would be hours. That's another brand or navigational search. You see what it does? Rich snippet. It's showing their hours of operation. So you could do hours of operation, right? All of these variants, guys, you want to use variations of branded or navigational search queries, all types of, because those are incredibly powerful signals, because you're telling Google's algorithm that the company is important enough and well-known enough that people are searching for it by name. That is a much, much better CTR signal than just a generic keyword search and click, right? These are entity weighting search terms. When I say weighting, I mean like WEIGHTING, like it's adding weight to the entity, making the entity heavier, more massive, right? Does that make sense? Google, it's a very, very powerful signal. This was, I was taught about this way back in 2008 I think it was 10 or 11 by Ivan Budimir, who again was the most influential mentor on my local SEO business in all of my career. Ivan Budimir from Maps Magic many years ago, Michael X or Michael Taggart, they had a project together called Maps Magic, and Ivan Budimir was a freaking savant. He doesn't do SEO anymore, at least not publicly. But back then in the day, I think it was 2000, probably 11. But anyway, he pulled out what was called the site weight patent, which that's not the official term, but it was a Google patent. I think that was approved in 2008 or 9, but it was talking about how if there's two sites that all things were equal, that's almost impossible. But if theoretically, hypothetically, if there was two sites that had the same structure, they were optimized exactly the same. If one site has more branded searches than the other, that branded search, the site that receives more branded searches or search queries is going to outrank the other one every time. Full stop, like period. And so that was way back when I first learned about this. He called it the site weight patent. That's what Ivan called it. He brought out the patent, he showed it, he read through it, deciphered it. I can't read patents, but he could. He was, like I said, dude was a savant. And he explained it. And that was way back when I first learned about CTR manipulation. Back then, we did it with microtask workers. We would hire microtask workers and pay 4 cents or 3 cents or 2 cents for them to go search in Google for a particular keyword or for the brand name, and then find the URL, click it, and then kind of scan down. We tell them to copy the 3rd word in the 2nd paragraph or the 8th word in the 7th paragraph or something like that. Why would we do that? Because it would cause them to find that URL, click onto it, and then have to scroll on the page and dwell on the page to try to find that word. And then they would enter that into the box to show that they had completed the task. Then they would get their payment. And that's where I first started learning about click-through rate manipulation. And again, this was 10 years ago now. We did it manually through microtask workers. But anyways, all of this stuff right here, these variants of navigational search queries or branded search queries all matter because it makes the weight, the entity heavier or more massive, right? It means it's more authoritative to Google because it means to Google, right? It's showing that the company is well known enough for people to be searching for it by name. And that is a great, great signal, guys. So like hours of operation, business hours, like all of these are, you see, I look at it gives you suggestions, right? So these kind of suggestions are the suggestions that you want to include in your navigational search queries because they're the ones that people often search for. And again, if like hours of operation, you see how boom, it's all of that. So what about this? You see how they've got a published street address? So what about this? Location. What's it do? Boom, that's another branded search query. What about address, right? If I could spell, God damn it, there we go. There's another one, right? So Culpeper Home Services address. Those are all, and then again, you can also add keywords in there. You can also add modifiers. So like, let's see, Elkwood. Let's see if we can do that. Elkwood, VA. That's area in Culpeper. Okay, so you can see it's like a town within the county of Culpeper County. So again, you can see Culpeper Home Services Elkwood. That didn't pop a knowledge panel, but it popped them at the top of the 3-pack, and then look who's ranked first. And you can see that these are all like, by the way, that's a good service. Nearby now. I've got a couple of our mastermind members that have recently experienced some of their client stuff that are benefiting from Nearby Now, which is an app. It's pretty cool. I want to revisit this. I had a plumbing client like 6 years ago that we implemented this for, and 3 months after implementing it, he let me go as his SEO. And I never came back to Nearby Now, but recently this has popped up on my radar a couple times, like it just did just now. So that's something to look into, guys. Anyway, but you can see, guys, all of those are kind of like branded type of search queries. Those are all very, very powerful signals. Okay. So yeah, use those when you can. Look at that. They know semantic mastery methods. Look at that. That's a Culpeper Home Services Google site. I'll be damned. Looks very familiar. Interesting. I did not have anything to do with this project, but it sure looks familiar. Okay. I think that's it. We don't have anything else. We're good.
Yeah, let me check. Yeah, we're good on YouTube.
Okay, guys. Well, thanks everybody for being here. We see you next week after POFU Live. Hopefully we'll
Yeah.
see some of you guys there.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't got your ticket yet, go to pofulive.com, grab it. Hopefully we'll see you guys there on Saturday.
Okay. Thanks, guys. See you guys
See ya.
next time.